Over the last few months, I've gone deep into the science of sleep. I've read books, watched lectures, listened to podcasts, and looked at the actual research on how sleep works on a biological level. One thing became very clear to me. Sleep is not just about feeling rested. It affects your memory, your focus, your mood, your hormones, your metabolism, and even how your brain learns new information. So I started implementing some science-based sleep habits into my own routine. And this video, I'm gonna show you the habits that made the biggest difference for me. And we're gonna talk about the biology behind why they work. Let's start with the most obvious question. How much sleep do you actually need? Most research show that healthy adults should sleep between 7 to 9 hours every night. Large studies show that if you're sleeping less than 7 hours often, it's associated with things like cardiovascular diseases, weight gain, depression. So sleep is kind of important. Personally, my sweet spot is usually around 7 to 9 hours, but I will be honest, there are definitely periods where that doesn't happen. For example, during exam periods, or like when I'm working on big projects, my sleep can drop a little bit. And every single time that happens, I notice a big difference the next day. My focus is worse, my memory is worse, and even I feel like my brain is working on 50% battery. But on the days when I actually sleep enough, that difference is huge. I feel more energized, I think more clearly, and studying becomes more easy. So if there is one habit I'm still actively working on improving, it's simply protecting my sleep time. Now here's something interesting. Sleep is not just controlled by how tired you feel. It is also controlled by a biological timing system in your brain. It's called the circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm is regulated by a small structure in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And this structure acts as the master clock of your body. It controls the release of hormones like melatonin, cortisol, epinephrine. And these hormones basically decide when your body feels awake and when it feels sleepy. One of the best ways to support this system is simply having a consistent sleep schedule. Personally, I go to bed around 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. sometimes, and I wake up around the same time each morning. And one thing I try to avoid is studying or working late at night, because if I study right before bed, my brain just keeps thinking about whatever I was studying. And then instead of sleeping, I'm basically laying in bed thinking about metabolic pathways or neuroanatomy, which is not exactly relaxing. So I usually stop studying and working around 5 p.m. That way, when I go to bed, my brain has actually the time to switch off. One of the most powerful signals controlling your circadian rhythm is actually light. When light hits the retina in your eyes, it sends signals to the brain that regulate your circadian clock. This triggers the release of hormones like cortisol that makes you feel awake. And it also starts a biological timer that tells your brain when to release melatonin later in the evening. This is why getting morning sunlight can dramatically improve your sleep quality. And that actually leads us to the next very important part. Exercise also plays a big role in sleep quality. When you exercise, your body increases sleep pressure. It is partially caused by the accumulation of adenosine, a molecule that makes you feel sleepy. Exercise also activates recovery processes that make your body want to sleep deeper. But here's something interesting I've noticed personally. I don't like going for hard workouts early in the morning, because when I do heavy workouts in the morning, I sometimes feel like having less energy for the rest of the day. So if I train in the morning, I keep it short, maybe like a quick run or a quick lifting session. So my main workouts, like a proper strength training, usually happens in the afternoon. That is when I've eaten, finished my work, and feel the most energized. And honestly, after a good workout, falling asleep later that night is so much easier. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite thing, caffeine. Caffeine works by blocking receptors for a molecule called adenosine. And adenosine is one of the main chemicals that creates that sleep pressure. Throughout the day, adenosine gradually builds up in the brain. The more adenosine you have, the sleepier that you feel. And caffeine blocks that signal, which is why coffee makes you feel more alert. But caffeine has a half-life of about 5 to 6 hours, meaning if you drink coffee too late in the day, it can still be affecting your brain when you're trying to sleep. So personally, I try to follow two rules. First, I don't drink coffee immediately after waking up. I usually wait about 90 minutes to 1 hour. And second, I try to avoid caffeine after 11 or 12 p.m. because if I drink coffee later than that, I'm definitely affecting my sleep. And good sleep is worth way more than one extra coffee. Even though, let's be honest, coffee is amazing. Another important habit is what you do before bed. Artificial light, especially from screens, can interfere with your sleep. And that's because bright light suppresses the hormone melatonin, which signals to your brain that it's time to sleep. So my evening routine is pretty simple. I stop studying around 5 p.m. and a couple hours before bed, I stop scrolling and using screens. Instead, I usually read a book. And the funny thing is, reading is almost like a natural sleep signal. Within maybe 15 minutes, I can feel myself getting sleepy and tired. And then I usually fall asleep pretty naturally. Another thing that affects sleep is temperature. To fall asleep properly, your body actually needs to reduce its core body temperature by at least 1 to 3 degrees Celsius. That's why cooler rooms tend to improve the quality of sleep. So personally, I try to keep my room slightly cooler at night. I don't have expensive sleep technology or anything like that. I just try to keep my room a little bit cooler. Simple but effective. There's one more concept that helps explain why all of these habits work. That concept is something called sleep pressure. Sleep pressure is mainly driven by a molecule in the brain called adenosine, which is something I've mentioned a couple of times in this video. And from the moment that you wake up in the morning, adenosine starts building up in your brain. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine accumulates. And the more adenosine you have, the stronger the biological drive to sleep becomes. And this is why things like exercise, being active during the day, and avoiding long day-night naps can actually improve sleeps, because they help increase the natural sleep pressure. And by the time night comes, your brain has accumulated enough adenosine to make you fall asleep so much easier. So good sleep is not just about what you do at night. It's also about what you do during the entire day. Now, obviously, I don't follow every single one of these habits perfectly every day. Sometimes I stay up later. Sometimes I drink coffee a little bit later than I should. But implementing even a few of these habits can dramatically improve your sleep. And when your sleep improves, your energy improves, your focus improves, your mood improves, your life gets so much better. So if you are interested in the science of health, performance, and how the human body actually works, consider subscribing.